Welcome back to the year 1985 as we continue our look at the Voltron Defender of the Universe toy line by Matchbox. Previously, we took a look at the Voltron Deluxe Lion set and learned how the Japanese anime Beast King Go Lion was edited and translated into the Voltron Lion Force. World Events Productions, the company responsible for the Go Lion translation, followed with another translation, this time taking the anime Armored Fleet Diarugger 15 and turning it into, what else? Another Voltron. This Voltron, dubbed Vehicle Voltron by many, was made up of 3 teams, the Land Team, Sea Team, and Air Team. Each team was comprised of 5 pilots and 5 vehicles. In addition to being able to form Voltron, each team could form their own powerful fighter. The Land Team could form the Turbo Terrain Fighter, the Sea Team, the Aqua-Fighter, and the Air Team, the Stratofighter. And today, we'll be taking a look at the Land Team and the Turbo Terrain Fighter, here on Part 1 of the KREED'S Collection Christmas Special. Hey, Merry Christmas, and welcome to Part 1 of the second annual KREED'S Collection Christmas Special. Today we are looking at the Land Team and the Turbo Terrain Fighter from the 1985 toy line Voltron Defender of the Universe by Matchbox. The Land Team is comprised of vehicles number 15, 14, 13, 12, and 11. And we are not going to waste any time starting with vehicles number 15 and 14, piloted by Hutch and Marvin. Hutch and Marvin have 2 of the most normal looking vehicles in the entire set, and they form the left and right foot of Voltron. In Japan, these 2 vehicles were simply known as Type 15 and Type 14. However, in the United States, they were given a lot more elaborate names. However, these probably also have the most basic names, being called all-terrain space vehicles. Hutch and Marvin are actually very good friends. Hutch is kind of your typical tough guy, and Marvin is kind of the comic relief of the group. I remember having a hard time keeping up with all the pilots' names when I watched this as a kid because there were 15 of them, and it was kind of overwhelming for me at the time. Anyway, now that we know a little bit more about Hutch and Marvin and their all-terrain space vehicles, let's take a closer look. One of the most obvious things that's noticeable about these trucks are the slits here on the top. And that is actually for transforming it into the Turbo Terrain Fighter or into Voltron. The front axle is free spinning and the wheels are made out of plastic. And the rear axle has a friction motor, and believe it or not, they still work on both of these. They're not very fast and they don't go very far, but they do still work just the same as they did the day I got them, so that makes me pretty happy. On the back bottom bumper, there's these little wheels you can flip out on both of them, and that is for when you form it into Voltron. So we'll actually touch on those wheels again in part 4 of the special. Before we move on, I just wanted to show that there are some minor differences like the grills and the overall shape of these 2, but technically the all-terrain space vehicles are pretty similar. Alright, moving along from Marvin and Hutch to number 13 and number 12, MODOK and Cinda. MODOK pilots the Armored Equipment Carrier, and it becomes the left hand of Voltron. Cinda pilots the Rotating Personnel Carrier, and it becomes the right hand of Voltron. MODOK can best be described as a gentle giant, but he's also quite reckless and doesn't have much of a care for protocol. Cinda is an alien from an aquatic planet who loves nature and also displays clairvoyant tendencies. You're probably wondering why Cinda is on the Land Team and not the Sea Team, and that is a head scratcher, but the leader of the Sea Team, Kirk, is from the same planet that she is. Don't worry, we'll be getting to him and the Sea Team in part 2 of this special. MODOK and Cinda's vehicles don't look very realistic compared to Hutch and Marvin's, but I gotta say, they did a pretty good job making a vehicle out of a forearm and a hand. They're pretty similar, with the biggest differences being on the front here. The knuckles have 4 headlights on one, 2 on the other, and then a little bit more detail on the top of the hand. The blue canopy glass is present here and here, that's where the pilot sits. Now there's 2 yellow buttons on either side here that you squeeze to release it from Voltron or the Turbo Terrain Fighter, and then this button here launches the fist. And we're going to go ahead and launch those fists right now. Here we go. See? Still works really good, and it's nearly 40 years old. That's amazing. And here's a look at them without the fists. As you can see, there's just a little groove there you slot them into. Now just like before, the front axle is freewheeling, but these actually have rubber tires. And it does have a friction motor in the back as well. But sadly, these friction motors didn't hold up very well, and that's about as good as it's going to get. Okay, now that we're done with MODOK and Senda, it's time to move on to the Type 11 and its pilot, Cliff, the leader of the land team. Cliff pilots the Jet Radar Station, or the Type 11 in Japan, which forms the lower torso or hips of Voltron. Cliff speaks with an Australian accent on the cartoon, and he has a very wry sense of humor. The Jet Radar Station is a vehicle, I guess? This was one of the ones as a kid that I always found kind of odd. It does have wheels on the bottom here, and they are freewheeling plastic. Believe it or not, this thing rolls like a dream. I mean, it is stunning. So nice. It has a canopy here and one on the back as well. And then the radar dish is actually right here. You just pull it open. And it looks cool, but the main reason I leave it closed is because it houses this switch, which is used to switch it between modes when you're transforming, but I prefer to hide it. Now for some reason on this side there's these silver squares, not sure why they're not on both sides, but I guess it's just a little extra detail. Okay, now it's time to form the Turbo Terrain Fighter. So these tabs you got to pull down, and you want to do that on either side, so when you're done it'll look like this. And then right here there's a hidden button that you have to push in, and when you do push it in, on the other side it makes these two tabs pop out. Now once you have it fully done, it'll look something like this. Now you just want to slot the truck in to the bottom like so, and then go ahead and repeat that process with the black truck. Then you take the other two and snap them on here, and one more, and behold, the Turbo Terrain Fighter. The Turbo Terrain Fighter is heavily armored and much more powerful than the land team in their separate pieces. And it's my personal favorite of the three fighters. I'm not sure if it's because the vehicles are more identifiable, but I don't know, there's just something about the Turbo Terrain Fighter that really stands out to me. Here's a closer look at the front. I think it has a pretty cool look to it with the two 4x4s on the bottom. And here's a quick 3/4 view again, just so you have a better idea of what it looks like. And then here at the back, you can see where the buttons pushed in, and the silver panels do add a little bit of detail. As far as features, it's got pretty much the same ones. The friction motors let it run around on the floor if you rev it up, and you can fire the fists at any opposing enemies. And in summation, the Turbo Terrain Fighter is a high-speed, heavily armored assault tank, ready for action. Now I'll just take a look at one of the copyrights since they're all pretty much the same. This is the Type 11 chip, as you can see up there in the upper left corner, and at the bottom you can see Japan, 1982. And now for our He-Man size comparison. He-Man's a little bit bigger than the Turbo Terrain Fighter, but that doesn't diminish his respect for it. He always appreciates any technology that takes the fight to evil. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my toy retrospective for the Turbo Terrain Fighter from the 1985 Voltron Defender of the Universe toy line by Matchbox. Remember, this is only part 1 of 4 of the KREED'S Collection Christmas Special. Part 2 will be next Wednesday, December 18th, as we take a look at the C-Team and the Aqua-Fighter. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a thumbs up. And if you have any thoughts, please leave a comment. I love reading and responding to them. And while you're at it, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate it, and it would help my channel grow. I do a retrospective on a toy for my vintage collection every Wednesday. So hope to see you next week and every week after, here on KREED'S Collection.